Okay, story time. This is really creepy and really unsettling. So this girl and her brother, let's call her Amanda, rode the same bike path every day, 3 times a day. One day they decide to take a different path and they pass this old camper with this creepy old man sitting outside of it. So he starts yelling at them and he goes, "Hey, where are you from? How old are you? Come here." Of course they ignored him and kept pedaling, and I don't think he liked that because he got up and started chasing after them. Of course he was an old man who was running and they had bikes, but it's still weird. Later on, Amanda and her brother made friends with this girl who was a little bit younger than them, and they would hang out together. They were all hanging out when Amanda and her brother went inside, and Emma said that she was going to go for a walk. An hour later, it was dark and nobody had seen Emma, and that's when everybody started realizing that nobody knew where Emma was. Amanda and her brother tell her parents about the creepy old man that they saw the other day, and they take them to the camper. So they knock on the camper, he answers the door, and they ask if he's with anybody, and he's like, "No, I'm alone." Then they hear a really faint noise that kind of sounds like a girl, and he slams the door in their faces. So Amanda and Emma's parents call the police get there, they bust through the door, and guess who they find? Emma. Anyways, he was arrested for kidnapping. Yeah.
This is why you should always know a preacher. A man named Jack went to church on Sunday. He sat next to the preacher and said that he needed to talk. The preacher asked what's wrong, and Jack says, "I just can't do this anymore." The preacher says, "Can't do what anymore?" Jack says, "Deal with my ex-wife. She's driving me crazy." The preacher says, "What is she doing that's causing you to feel this way?" Jack says, "She's driving me insane. She's trying to take my kids away, and I can't let her do that." The preacher says, "I understand, but you need to do things the legal way. There's not much I can do for you other than pray." Jack stops and looks at the preacher for a second. Jack says, "Lawyers can't help me, Father." The preacher says, "Why not?" Jack says, "My ex-wife is dead. I need an exorcist." If you guys want to see more stories like this, make sure to like and follow.
When I was in 6th grade, I went to go visit my little cousins at their house. Their house was right on the edge of these woods, and the woods were really thick, and our parents always told us not to go there. And one time I asked my mom why, and she said because when people do bad things, they sometimes go and hide in the woods. I was staying at my cousin's house for a week on this one trip, and whenever I was bored, I would go look out the window and watch the woods. Usually it was pretty boring, and I would just be staring at trees, but one day it was like 5 p.m. and the sun was setting, so it was getting dark, and I saw something moving in the woods. I told my uncle, and he said it was probably just an animal, and I told him no, it was tall and looked like a skinny lady. And he said I have a creative imagination and it was probably just a deer. But then a few minutes later, I heard my aunt and uncle whispering in the kitchen. My aunt was talking about a woman from the psychiatric hospital in their town who had escaped. Their house was like 15 minutes away from a maximum security psychiatric hospital for criminals with mental illness. And then they saw me listening to them in the doorway and they stopped talking completely. A few days later, in the middle of the night, I heard a noise downstairs.
So I had just been dress coded for having a singular rip on my knee, right? And the vice principal and the assistant teacher harassing me the whole time. They make me change in a room with cement walls and dirt floors. They lock me in there, make me change, and they give me pants from the Lost and Found that are 2 sizes too small and dirty, right? So the teacher's walking me back to my class. She's harassing me the whole time, making fun of me. And I get back to class and I'm just crying because I'm so humiliated. They really just like brought me down. So my teacher comes up to me and she's like, "What's wrong? Like, what happened? Why did they take you down to the office? What took so long?" And I tell her the story, and I like tell the class the story, and nobody believes me. They're like, well, some of the students did. They were like, "What, really? Like, that's crazy." But the teacher was like, "I'm not buying it. Like, you're lying to me." And I was like, yeah, I wouldn't believe myself either. Like, that's crazy, right? So at the end of the day, I go down to the office and I ask for my pants back. And they said, "No, we don't want you wearing those pants again." So I was like, okay, I'll go back another day.
Can you solve this mystery? This is the story about the murder of a group of kids that went to the same school, but things are not as simple as they seem. Someone is hiding something, and all the clues to what really happened are hidden in what I'm about to say. After the tragic murders of these boys, they had to each be buried in closed caskets because their bodies were so badly beaten. But someone noticed something strange at the funeral. He was a friend of one of the boys' parents, and he saw an elderly woman sitting alone, someone that he didn't recognize. When the funeral was over, she quietly went over to each headstone with a smile and placed a clover next to each one. Then she said a silent prayer. He thought she must be one of the dead boys' grandmas. He asked her, "Why did you place a clover on their graves?" She replied, "It's a happy flower. It brings good luck. You see, my grandson died too, but it was a different incident. He was bullied for a long time, and one day he couldn't take it anymore. He hung himself in the school bathroom." The elderly woman began crying and left. He felt bad for her, but something felt off. That night, he decided to Google what clovers mean. It said that they were the symbol for revenge. What really happened here? Can you solve this mystery?
Don't open your eyes. On the last day of every month, close the blinds or curtains before you sleep. If in the middle of the night you hear a tapping noise at your window, don't open your eyes. If you're one of the unlucky ones, you'll hear the pebble sound at your window. It's not a friend, just keep your eyes shut. The sound will get louder, the tapping will get faster and faster. Don't let your curiosity get the better of you. Don't move. It'll lose its patience, it'll start thumping the window. Your window will shake and shudder and the noises will only get louder. It will furiously pound the window and shake the panes. Don't worry, the window won't break, but for goodness sake, don't open your eyes. No matter how scared you are, no matter how badly you want to scream, pretend you don't hear, pretend you're still asleep. After a while, the noises will stop. Don't fall for it, keep your eyes shut. Try to sleep if you can. Don't get up, don't open your eyes until the sun comes up. Those who do open their eyes, well, no one really knows what happens.